Discover your inner goddess and live up to your highest value and most abundant potential. Welcome to Grateful Goddesses, a podcast that empowers you to unleash your inner goddess and take the leap of faith to live your best life. Your guide, Karen Pulver, joins her fellow goddesses in soulful conversations about gratitude, personal growth, authentic living, and a bevy of topics affecting women today. Let's start the show with your host, Karen Pulver.
Welcome, everyone, to Grateful Goddesses. So, COVID has shown us the importance of being able to navigate uncertainty, right? Especially in real time. And things are constantly changing, as we know, causing anxiety and fear and insecurity. And while thankfully, thank God, not everyone has experienced COVID illness, or being ill, we all in some way or another have felt the financial impact that the pandemic has put on us. Whether it is yourself or your loved ones, we are all experiencing that uncertainty. And even when there's other unexpected situations that happen in your life, like divorce, illness, disability, losing a job, all of those things really can cause insecurity and anxious feelings. So it is with that I am thrilled to be having our guest, Laurie Itkin. Laurie Itkin is a financial advisor, wealth manager, and certified divorce financial analyst. She is the author of the Amazon bestseller, Every Woman Should Know Her Options, Invest Your Way to Financial Empowerment. Investopedia named Ms. Itkin one of the top 100 most influential financial advisors in the country. As a wealth manager at Coastwise Capital Group, which has received the annual 5-star award for Best in Client Satisfaction for the past 7 years, Ms. Itkin manages the investments of clients' brokerage, trust, and retirement accounts. Through her financial consulting company, The Options Lady, she provides divorce-related financial planning and analysis to individuals and couples throughout all stages of the divorce process. Ms. Itkin frequently appears as a guest expert on investing and personal finance on television, radio, and podcasts, as she is here today. She has been quoted in numerous publications, including The Wall Street Journal, San Diego Union Tribune, Chicago Tribune, Christian Science Monitor, U.S. News and World Reports, Redbook, and Forbes. So whether it be working with your spouse and investing in yourselves with the guidance and support of a financial planner, that is what we're going to be talking about today. So Laurie, can you come join us on Grateful Goddesses?
Hi, Karen. So happy to be here with you today and all the other goddesses. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you, Laurie. We are so excited, Financial Goddess. You're going to help us. I know it's your passion to educate, empower, and inspire women. And you had mentioned no matter what age or what stage in their lives, it's just important that we invest in ourselves. And your book called Every Woman Should Know Her Options, which is fantastic, by the way. Can you tell us why you are the Options Lady and about your journey of how you got to this point in your life?
Sure. Thank you. And thanks for sharing the book. I wrote the book about 6 years ago. Every woman should know her options, invest your way to financial empowerment. And it has been my gift of financial literacy to so many women around the world and even some men around the world who read the book. How I got here is really because of my mother. My mother died very suddenly at the age of 67. She wasn't ill. It was just a sudden death. And I have no doubt, she was 67. I have no doubt that within a couple of years, she would have run out of money. And I don't want any woman to have the fear that she is going to run out of money. And my mother was married 3 times. And, it's so important that a woman, no matter whether she be single, in a same-sex relationship, married, divorced, widowed, whatever it may be, she needs to feel like she controls her money, not that the money controls her. And she needs to feel independence, confidence, and that's really everything I do is with that theme of financial literacy and empowerment to women. And every woman should know her options.
So just to be a little vulnerable right now, my insecurity is controlling my money. Well, let's go back. When I was first married, I was the breadwinner in the family because my husband was a resident in dental school in oral surgery. So the money I was making, a teacher's salary, was supporting us, and I was paying the bills. And then once I had kids, switch. I had no time, no interest, and it was all done. He did it. And there's sort of, in this, the years went by, and I know a lot of other women might be able to relate to this. I became dependent on him making those decisions. While I still am involved in, estate planning and all of those types of things, or some investments and whatnot, it's really on his shoulders. And I always worry, and that's why I wanted to reach out to you, because now in my 50s, it's like, how come I let that go? I need to get back in to the game and really understand. But it's scary. It's scary to do that. I don't always know if I'm confident enough to make these financial decisions or invest in the stock market and, that type of thing. So I'm so glad you're here today. So thank you. I'd like to welcome our featured goddesses now, as we have some questions to talk about with you. Okay, Camille, you have a question about prenups.
Yes. So as a very young age, my father always made this point of saying that whenever I got engaged, his gift to me would be a prenup. Having been married a couple of times, he had learned the hard way that a prenup is really about protection. And I just kind of pushed it off, like, I'm never getting married. Don't even worry about it, Dad. And then, of course, what did I do? I eloped. So I never got a prenup. I didn't follow probably one of his best advice about marriage. And I'm curious, like, what can I do now? Is it too late? What protections should I look into?
Great question, Camille. So first of all, whenever I raise the issue of prenup, people who haven't been married before cringe. People who have been married before think it's the best idea. So first of all, I think your father's a wise man. Great advice. Let's just talk about why you should have a prenup. It's interesting. It's not really the prenup itself that I'm so interested in. It's the process that you and your partner are going to go through together. Because when you work to put a prenup together, each of you must disclose your assets and your debts. And particularly if you are marrying somebody who already has children, this is a great opportunity to discuss what are his or her obligations. Maybe alimony to an ex-spouse, maybe child support, maybe an obligation to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars of college costs 10 or 15 years from now. So by actually going through the process of the prenup, you are getting financially intimate with your soon-to-be spouse. And I cannot tell you how important that is to put you both on a level playing field. You will start that marriage with transparency. Because if you start that marriage and you don't know what either of you has, let me tell you, 10, 20 years from now, when there's a death or a divorce, if those horrible things happen, you are going to be scrambling to catch up.
What do I do now? We're 13
so what
years
do you do
in.
now? Thank you.
We're going to talk
Second
about
thing.
that. We're going to talk about that. Rachel, that was your question.
That was exactly my question.
I'm sorry.
I've been married now for over 20 years. And what do we do? We didn't go through the process. We don't have one. What are next steps?
So if you are already married and you do not have a prenup, this is an opportunity for you to work with your spouse to get some better transparency and financial literacy among both of you. One of the easiest tools to start with is your tax returns. So many people say to me, they don't really know what's in their tax return, they just sign it. And either one spouse is going to be using TurboTax or another program to prepare the tax return, and that spouse is going to be very knowledgeable about what goes into that tax return, or you have a tax preparer who you pay to prepare that return. I always recommend, ask your tax preparer, hey, can I pay for you to spend an extra hour with me explaining all the parts of the tax return? Because it's very important. A lot of women, when they are getting divorced, men too, when the woman has a business, they don't understand the income that's being generated from the business. And the tax return tells you a lot about that. So that's the first thing. The second issue is really just having a checkup with your spouse. And a good opportunity to do that is without threatening them, because people don't want to feel like you don't trust them and you're threatening them. You may say, hey, I'd like to understand, if you were to pass away, what would I need to do? Maybe we should talk to an estate planning attorney and make sure we understand what our assets, our debts are, our obligations, to maybe children we have from a previous marriage. You really want the opportunity to get up to speed with what your net worth is and what your income is and what your expenses are. You will feel so empowered, and this will mitigate a lot of fights you may have with your spouse. And who doesn't want fewer fights in their marriage?
I can't tell you how many women I know that hide purchases from their spouse. And yeah, I see smiles. I see a little laughter here and there, because you go out and get something and you're like, oh, I don't want to talk about that because, I didn't need it, but I wanted it, that kind of thing. And if you can't even talk about that with your spouse, how are you going to talk about tax returns? But if you can't talk about tax returns, then how are you going to talk about everyday expenses, right? It's kind of the same. You have to be really honest with your spouse.
Well, let's talk about, why do women, and men too, men don't volunteer their purchases either, so this is a same sex issue in terms of the gender doesn't really matter. Why would you hide a purchase from your spouse? Couple of reasons. Maybe you're ashamed at yourself for buying it in the first place, and you don't want to share your shame with somebody else, because then you're double shame. You're already punishing yourself for making that expenditure. You certainly don't want to get judged. One of the ways to really help this problem is, I always like to recommend that couples have 3 accounts. You each have your personal account, and you have a shared account for shared expenses. And perhaps you just have a pact with each other that if you're making a purchase over a certain amount, or you're spending a certain amount a month, whether it's $1,000, $500, $10,000, it depends on your lifestyle. You don't need to share or get permission, but if it's a large purchase that you feel, because remember, you really have a fiduciary obligation to your spouse to use your joint money in a way that will benefit the family, okay? It benefits you, you are part of the family, but so just thinking about your joint money, respect that money and respect your spouse's feelings. But if you're going to have a spendthrift and a saver who's totally won't spend money, I counsel couples on this. I have couples coming to me, it's not even divorce related. They'll just say, look, we just need a neutral person with experience to help us reduce conflicts. What tips do you have, Laurie, that will help us stop fighting over money? And that's just one example.
I think that's well needed. Does that answer your question, Rachel?
Yeah, I love everything that you're saying, because like Karen, we had a shift in balance after when I actually worked with my first 2 kids, but my third one is when I stopped working. And I've noticed, even though everything is, shared and we have a common account, that there's I've lost my power. I feel that, because I'm not earning an income and I have less of a say of what we spend money on, and my husband's managing it more. And our financial advisor also recommended that I just have my own account, and it's not that much money, but it's enough that I just don't feel like I have to be accountable for everything I buy. And it has really changed our relationship. So I love you saying this. It gives me my own personal freedom, and there's less answering to. I only have to answer to myself.
I was going to say, Rachel, you articulated that so well, because sometimes it's the money, but oftentimes the money is symbolic of something else. And by you having to ask permission to spend money because you're not the one bringing in that money really negates the role you play in the family. You are a partner, okay? In California, we have a saying in that when you get married, you're a community, and one person can be not earning money and the other person earning money, and those roles can shift. But the point is that it's community funds no matter who earns it. And I tell you, when people get divorced, they hate that. They don't like that because they feel like, well, I brought in 80% of the income and now I have to share this income. That's an issue we face a lot. And I do want to comment something on prenups, if I may, Karen. Just I want to, one other reason why it's so important to get a prenup is because by not signing a prenup, you actually are invisibly signing an invisible prenup, and that's the laws of your state. And in California, where I practice, that means that you may end up having to, like I said, the community, you may end up having to share things that you don't think are fair. You may not like how spousal support will apply depending on what side of the fence you're in. And every state's very different. Some states you may have an inheritance and you may not be able to keep that separate depending on what you've done with it. So very important, by not going through the process of having a prenup, you are having a prenup, and it's the state law where you may end up filing for divorce, and you are not going to like that, especially if you don't understand those laws.
That is so important for us to hear. I mean, it makes me want to just go downstairs now and say, hey, let's do this, let's sign this. But what I wanted to say, what I picked up on was, in your story, you had mentioned that your grandfather gave your mother an allowance and then gave you an allowance, which I feel made you dependent on him. And a lot of women and men, maybe with, with their spouses, it's just that dependence on another person. And that's why it's so important to take that power back. Exactly. Right.
Absolutely.
Dina.
Hi, Laurie. So, I actually have gone through all these steps. I unfortunately lost a husband 10 years ago, and then thankfully met another and remarried. And I have 2 kids. He has a son. He has a divorce. We have a prenup. We've had lots of money conversations. They were very, fortunately, they weren't easy, but they weren't forced. We've been very upfront. And then our estate planning with lots of complexities. So my question to you is how do you, or what do you recommend or advice do you have for preparing for these uncertain events that may happen, death, divorce, etc.?
Yeah, Dina, my heart goes out to you. You've experienced so many things, very painful experiences, but it sounds like you've really grown and you seem so financially savvy now because you've gone through these exercises. So the best way to prepare, I mean, let's talk about them separately. Death, obviously, it's you can't really prepare for death. But what you can do is, again, totally understanding where you are, because from a net worth standpoint, when I say net worth, I mean, what are the family's assets and what are the family's debts? And the way to prepare, I mean, you can always say to your spouse, if you are married to somebody who is in control of all the money, the way to really get this on the table is to say, hey, what if something happened to you? What if you were hit by a car? What if you got cancer? What would I do to make sure that I can thrive financially, and our children, if we have any, can, and maybe your children from a previous marriage? And that is going to motivate your spouse to want to take you up to speed, to want to ensure that you have transparency. Occasionally they don't. They may say to you, well, just you have the phone number of our CPA and our financial advisor, but I really encourage you once a year to say, if you have a financial advisor, I would really like to spend extra time with this financial advisor or CPA to understand where we stand. because sometimes a spouse feels like they're being patronized by the other spouse. You know, they can be condescending. They don't mean to sometimes. Just spend that extra time getting financially literate. That's going to help you so much. In terms of divorce, very same thing. You do not want to feel like your spouse may be 1 foot out the door, or maybe you're 1 foot out the door, and not understand the ramifications. Here's the most important question women ask me. Laurie, am I going to be okay financially? Am I going to run out of money? Am I going to have enough money to buy a house? Am I going to have enough money that I don't have to work till I'm 80? You want the answers to those questions before death or divorce occurs.
Great, thank you.
Along those lines, Michelle has worked with Laurie, and that is actually how Laurie and I met. She connected us, and I only heard amazing things about Laurie, and just how not only did Laurie help Michelle just with the basics of what to do during her divorce, but just really being sympathetic, empathetic, listening to what Michelle's needs are, and just a real authentic person. So that's why I really wanted to have Laurie on the show to help all the goddesses out there. So Michelle, can you talk a bit about your experience working with Laurie?
Sure. Well, everything you said is true, Karen. Laurie, you've just been a godsend. We spoke about this earlier in the conversation. I knew nothing financially. I paid some bills, and I really deferred to my ex. And I knew there were signs that things weren't great, but there was so much going on in my life that I still couldn't focus on the financial. I just hated it that much. And so now, after, a very long marriage, I'm, somewhat newly single. And I went to Laurie because, Laurie, you really helped me understand what I have and what my life would look like. And so we've been mediating after a year and a half. We're still not entirely done. And Laurie, you've just, I want to know what my life would look like financially. And that's where you really came in and really grounded me when I was just all over the place and very, very scared. And so that's sort of where I'm at right now. And also I know I'm going to continue to work with Laurie. And now I'm going to start planning. So the first step was just understanding what I had and could I live off of that. And now as soon as we sign, it'll be about planning and how to not run out of money at 67 or 70 or 60, I don't know. And so now I'm strong enough to know I've got it, but it's been a great relationship. Absolutely.
No, thank you, Michelle. I've loved working with you too, because I know when we started working, I could just see all the stuff that was literally your brain was just moving like this, all like how, and it's a puzzle. And I help women identify all the puzzle pieces and make them stop moving and putting them in. And then we have gaps, pieces are missing. And over time, slowly, we try to figure out what those pieces are. And now, with Michelle, as she's going to be 100% responsible for every money decision in her life. And I don't want to be the kind of financial advisor that just says, oh, Michelle, I'll take care of everything. Don't worry about it. My philosophy is I want to be a partner. I want to be a teammate. I really feel like we have to do this together. I have some strengths. Michelle has some strengths, we can complement each other. But at the end of the day, she's going to be my boss, right? But we are going to work together to help make sure that she is investing her money in a way so that it will not only, some of it will grow for the future, some of it will be here to provide income on a monthly basis. It's not just thinking about budgeting, it's how you're going to invest your money so that it's there in the form you need it to be at whatever age you're in. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, it's unbelievably empowering. And Karen, we were just talking yesterday or something about how, I didn't know anything, but I had this epiphany and I thought to myself a couple days ago, how did I not know? And this is my life and it's part of my life. It's part of me and I have to know. It just sort of hit me. And I really enjoy it because then I'm able to make decisions. So it's been hugely empowering.
That's why I really wanted Laurie to come on the show, because this is, like I said earlier, a vulnerability, a weakness in me that I would like to be educated and learn and understand. And I'm hoping to touch on our viewers and listeners that it's okay. And I remember, Michelle, getting that phone call. You were so excited. And I said, what happened? Which therapist did you see? What's going on? You said, I saw the best therapist, the financial advisor, Laurie Itkin. And she said, I'm going to be okay. And that was a weight lifted off your shoulders, which is what
Huge.
exactly, Laurie, that's what it's an emotional thing. It's money is not just, what I can buy, what I can do. It's an emotional weight that by her knowing she was going to be okay, helped her to make really clear, rational decisions about other things in her life. And I've seen that. So
But let's talk about the dark side of this. Many women are
yes.
not going to be okay. And this is why being engaged throughout the marriage, whether you're the breadwinner or not, you have to be, because let me tell you, I worked with Worthy. We did a study of women, and there were so many financial surprises that women faced during the divorce. And these were not like showing up to your house with balloons and a cake surprise. These were nasty financial surprises. A lot of women didn't know, not only do they have a mortgage on their house, there's a home equity line of credit. There's such little equity in that house that if they were to sell the house, there'd be barely any money to buy, for a down payment on another house. They learned that there were loans for the spouse had a business. They learned that there was nothing in retirement, maybe $10,000. They learned that there was credit card debt. There's the dark side here. And after 10, 15, 20 years, this stuff, you can find out that everything you thought you've worked for and grown with your spouse is worth almost nothing and could even be negative. I hate to scare people, but I can't not scare people because it is the truth. And you are complicit in that. If you decide in your marriage to just ignore it and just rely on your spouse, no matter how smart he or she may be, this is the risk you're taking. You're taking the risk that there may be nothing, whether you stay married or not. I cannot say how this is so important. This is what happened to my mother. Let me go back to my mother. Again, she died. And I know because my brother and I got, a very modest inheritance. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying that we were shocked how little money was left because of her father leaving her an inheritance. And her third husband, God, it was just a money pit with his rental properties, and she just trusted him, or she just wanted to not have a fight with him. And that's what I'm telling you. I think by the time, if she had lived 3 more years, they would have been financially drained. I really feel that.
Dina, go ahead.
I wanted to say something in regards to that. And I was told by a professional one time, this resonated with us, that whoever the breadwinner is in the home and whoever's not the breadwinner, if that's your situation, you have a worth already by the things you do, right? So if you're the house cook and you're the house cleaner and you're the house babysitter and all these things, if you add up what that cost would be if you had people doing those jobs for you, you have worth. So whether the conversation should happen or can't happen or won't happen, like there's a starting place right there. You have worth, you do provide for your family, and therefore all that financial information, is yours to be had as well. And I thought that was a really good way to start and have that conversation, because you're already giving yourself some worth if you're not working. So that was really, I thought, some good advice to help people.
Yeah. And just, excuse me for a sec, but to be honest, my ex doesn't see that value. And I am very fortunate that, I know I'll be just fine, but it's scary. Because at the end of the day, I'll just talk in terms of divorce. It doesn't, very sadly in this world, and I'm in California, and it's the best state to be in, but it doesn't really hold a lot of weight when it comes down to financial issues. And it's a really sad thing for women.
So many, I hate to say it, so many breadwinners. It's the women too. Let me tell you, I have a lot of women coming to me in their divorce who have to pay spousal support to their spouse. They're not happy about it. And California is known for having some, I don't want to say generous spousal support laws. You may get more spousal support in California than many other states. I'll just say it like that. I have so many women coming to me whose husbands were engineers, smart people who can get a job, they've been laid off in their 50s. Somehow they don't go back to work. Maybe they try to start a business. It's not successful. And these women are going to be paying a lot of spousal support to their husbands. And they feel the same way, Michelle, as your husband feels. They feel like, I've been the one earning the money. Now I've got to subsidize this guy. So I want to just reiterate that we can't, it's not traditional sex roles here, because this is happening with both genders. It's really important to know it's an equal opportunity employer.
No, absolutely.
We spent a lot of time talking about divorce, a little bit about death, but I think it's just really important that no matter where a woman is in her life, she's going to sometimes be dependent on others financially, and sometimes be independent, and sometimes be in a shared role. And I think just being cognizant of where you are in that continuum, and just staying financially aware of your situation all along the lifetime, you will be fine. You will feel empowered, you will feel secure, and you will feel proud.
Along those lines, I do have a question that just popped up. How do you feel about your children and being open and honest with your kids about your financial worth? I know I've had this discussion with other women and my husband, and of course it depends on their ages, but now my kids are young adults. Some people are completely honest about every single thing, so their kids are totally aware, and some aren't. So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
So this is an issue that comes up with affluent people who have wealth. I think, first of all, you want to be on the same page as your spouse on what you tell the kids, right? That's always helpful. And you may also want some guidance from a financial advisor, a therapist, an estate planning attorney, because you don't really want a kid to know that they've got a whole trust fund coming to them if you think it may not motivate them to work. I think the one advice I would give to your children, whether they be boys or girls, is to just instill in them that they need to be prepared. They need to be prepared in their choices in life and career and whatever, that they can be financially independent. They need to know, they have to understand the savings, that if they decide in a marriage that they will leave the workforce and raise kids, they need to understand the pros and cons of those activities. So it's all about choices, but educating your children on what are the consequences of each choice they may make in life. And then you're empowering your children to make good decisions, but good decisions that work for them, not for you.
Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for empowering us today with all of this amazing wisdom and education. And if our viewers or listeners would like to contact you, how can they do that?
The best way to do that is to go to my website, theoptionslady.com. Literally there it goes, theoptionslady.com.
Thank you for joining us on Grateful Goddesses.
Thank you so much, everyone. It was a pleasure.
Up next, favorite things. Opening up to happiness and joy.
Welcome, everyone, to Show and Tell Time, Favorite Things. We're going to start with Michelle. What have you brought today that brings you happiness and joy?
So it's sort of interesting because it's a material thing, but to be honest, it goes full circle here, because Laurie, it was really you that gave me the courage to understand, or gave me the knowledge to understand that, what my future looked like and what I could do. And I was terrified because my car was on the brink, and I was afraid that, how was I going to buy a car now that I'm single? But this is my favorite thing, because this is the key to my new Tesla that I just bought. And I couldn't have done it without your help, because.
So tell our listeners so they can, because they're not seeing it. What is it that you just held up?
So I just held up my phone, which is the actual key to my new car, my Tesla. And it felt so empowering to buy. And it's not about the material thing. It's just about me and having control over my life. And I felt like it was actually a very good financial decision for me to make, but I wouldn't have known that without Laurie. So
good for you. Don't lose that key.
I have a few more. It's okay.
Okay, good. Dina, how about you?
So we have a coin jar designed for coins, it has like the little slap, but certainly anybody could use any jar. And well, we really haven't been putting coins in it since COVID because we're not really using any money, like paper money, to get coins. But in the past, we've always enjoyed taking it to the bank when it's full, finding out how much is in there. And then as a family, we decide what to do with that money, whether it's, saved for vacation activities or food or split up, whatever we decide, or donated. So it's a fun little activity.
I have to tell you a funny quick story about that. My husband had one of those Coke bottles, the plastic big Coke bottles that he filled up all of his childhood. And he went away and then he came home and it was empty. And we still don't know who cashed all that money.
Funny you say that. My father had a shoebox, and my father passed away many years ago now. My mom sent it back with me recently to tell my kids that whoever took it into the bank and sorted it gets to keep it. So
there you go.
There's a lot of coins.
It's a fun thing to do. Rachel, how about you?
So in light of our women empowerment discussion today, I brought a new book that was a gift for me. And
what is it called, Rachel?
Be More Wonder Woman and Fearless Thinking from a Warrior Princess. And as you love Glenda the Good Witch, Karen, I love Wonder Woman, and I've loved her my whole life. And I am constantly trying to just bring that power back to me as a woman and just arm myself and protect myself and be smarter about decisions. So thank you so much, Laurie, for helping us all on this journey.
Wonder Woman. Love that. Camille.
So I knew we were going to be talking about finances. So I brought my my school cup as a reminder because I had my parents divorced or separated basically my like 3 days before my graduation from high school. So I had to pay my own way through school because they had to now deal with divorce and figure out whose house and all of that fun stuff, which is probably why my dad was like, prenup for your engagement gift. But I was able to go through college. It took me a little bit longer than some of my friends and family, but I paid it all off and didn't have any college debt when I graduated from college. So that made me very excited. And I was on the dean's list too, but I had to work my way through it.
Oh my gosh, good for you. Wow, that's incredible. That's a great favorite thing.
It was a lot of work and it took 8 years, but I finished.
You did it. Yeah. My favorite thing was given to me, one of my favorite things. It's in my nightstand and it's a little knit pouch. And actually inside are 18 coin, 18 cents. And it's called a high pouch. And it was given to me by a Holocaust survivor that I went to go here. And she makes these. And it's called, this high pouch was made by hand, especially for you. 18 cents is enclosed as 18 is a spiritual number in Judaism. In the Hebrew alphabet, Chai equals 18. Chai symbolizes life, luck, healing, and prosperity and joy. With peace, Sephora. So this is from her, and she gives these out to people whenever she meets them, and it's so nice to just keep by my bedside. And I look at it and just realize how grateful I am that I have her in my life, and as well as, just everything, abundance that I have in my life, not material necessarily, just abundance of friendships like you guys and meeting new people like Laurie that help us in our lives. So we're now on to Laurie's favorite thing. What did you bring today?
Well, I just want to encourage everybody to take improv comedy classes with their significant other, if they have a significant other, because, I got married late in life, so I'm a very independent person, and I've realized that if you don't continually learn new things with your spouse, you will grow apart. And so improv comedy was something that I was interested in. I took some classes myself, and I came home in a great mood every time I came home. And he said, "Why are you in such a good mood?" And then I invited him to try. And even during COVID, there's online improv classes. And so my favorite thing is really a gift to others who are in a marriage or relationship that's sort of going stale. take up something fun with your partner and learn together. It creates new lines of intimacy between the two of you.
It's so funny you say that. My husband and I did improv as well. We did all the levels. But do you know, for the first couple weeks of the classes, we didn't tell anyone that we were married, and we came in at different times and sat apart from each other, and we were only introduced by our first name. And then when we finally did tell people, people were like, wait, what? I thought she was married to that guy, someone completely different. But I have to say, I agree with you. And I always joked that it was the best disguise couples therapy that we could ever have had, because it really brought you together. You have to do yes and, so everything has to be a yes and not a no. And then when you can take it home with you and continue, we come home and we get mad at each other. I say, wait, what happened to the yes and? What happened? Where did that go? So I love that favorite thing. Thank you all for sharing your favorite things. And thank you so much, Laurie, for joining us.
Thank you.
Unleashed your inner goddess yet? Thanks for joining us today on Grateful Goddesses. We invite you to visit our website, www.gratefulgoddesses.com, to access today's show notes as well as other helpful resources. Don't forget to leave a review. Until next time, stay strong and empowered to be a grateful goddess.